I was just playing the game, Viewtiful Joe, original, like the first one on PS2, and I'm like, wow, it's a fun game. I love his character, and like it was a pretty simple costume, I thought originally, because previously, as I said, everything was very bulky on my previous costumes, but this one, it was just very skin tight tights and a giant helmet. Like, how hard can that be, right? So, and I think Richard already had some other idea before going in, but I called him like, oh, I'm probably gonna go as Beautiful Joe, and he's like, awesome, let me be your Captain Blue. I'm like, yes, yes, you may.
Basically do a brainstorming process in the beginning. Well, I usually did this by myself, but since I was teamed up with Roger, we actually sat down. We had two meetings, like formal meetings, where we sat down, we wrote this stuff down. We like did sketches and diagrams, and we were thinking, what can we make this out of? We look at a piece article of their clothing. Like when we first saw the belt, we were like, okay, we need a piece of leather. And then we looked at Roger's beanbag chair, and we were like, we have some leather there. And so we took apart his beanbag chair.
So that's what we did, and that costume was different because it was like I think the full body tights part was just the most interesting aspect of it. We had to go to the dance shop on Broadway to buy that, and like I don't think we actually explained to the store owner what we were using for, but we were giggling like schoolgirls while we were trying them on. So obviously, she picked up that it wasn't for dancing. We didn't look like dancers, let's just say.
They were not the colors that we wanted, so we had to dye them. So we got our dye online. We found it, we ordered it, and when we got it, realized there was a lot of toxic instructions on it. So we had to wear like a lot of stuff. So I basically put on these like gardening gloves and like goggles I had from Chem Labs, and like these like little gas mask filters, the SARS mask filters, and like I couldn't do it in the house because like it was really smoky. So we took a hot pot and we took it outside in my backyard and we were stewing this thing. You have to stew the dye for an hour. My character, Captain Blue, he's really fat, and I wasn't that fat. And so basically we made up a story how I was the young version, because there was a young version of him too that was thin.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the original two characters were a little off, but we thought we were pretty close. As you can see, this is a baseball helmet, or it used to be a baseball helmet. And I took a Dremel and I cut around it to make it look like a more Power Ranger thing. And this visor here I bought at the dollar store. It was basically, those old Chinese women, they wear to block out the sun. Yeah, this is basically a cutout of that. And this is a dollar store sword. I think it's really important to do this stuff in groups because you get so much more creativity. And he had some really smart ideas that I didn't even think of. Like this idea of the teaspoon was like all him.
But for safety helmet, it's actually not. It's quite easy to work with. The top layer is just plastic, and then after that, it's protective foam. So once you work past the tough part, it's pretty easy. And then the original baseball helmet actually ended right here. I needed these protrusions, so I got some old flip-flops, and I cut the plastic out, and then I taped it on. I had some white vinyl lying around, so I did that. And then the rest is just spray paint. This is still cardboard. I'm probably gonna have to replace that with metal. And this is a spoon from the dollar store, which I painted gold. So, like that's where the creativity comes in, because like his costume and my costume were different. So we started with the same basic kind of foundation, but then in terms of the icing on the cake, it was different. There was a cape which was attached to this suit, and that one's interesting because it was actually a gradient kind of thing in terms of one end of the cape was white and the other was pink. And I asked people at the fabric store, it's like, how do you do that? Like, because I'm only familiar with dyeing fabric solid, right? So solid color. And they're like, well, you can't really, like, unless you have like a spray gun or like something very intricate setup that I wasn't willing to afford to invest in. So it was up to me to think of, well, what are some ways of doing this? And my mind actually went back to high school science, where you have a strip of paper and then you put a dot of ink at the bottom, and if you dip it in water, the ink travels up because the paper leaches the ink upwards, right? So I thought of that, and I'm like, well, you know what, that may be possible. So essentially I hung the fabric, and then I wet the entire thing, and I started with a very deep pink at the top, and lo and behold, gravity did the rest of the work and pulled it through, and it came out to pretty much the effect that I needed. And that's something that I look back on, I'm like, yeah, that was cool.
Exploited for good deeds and save this world. Joe wanders into the world of the movies and gallantly fights evil to rescue Sylvia.
You were pretty strong. And that move, the one you did back there, beautiful. Tell me, what do they call you? I'm Joe. Viewtiful Joe. Not bad.
I mean, that's the thing. It's sort of like, you know, I look at it and it's like you see it and you can tell that it's been worked with, right?
Yeah.
You know, and like someone if they were really into being a perfectionist, they could go full on. There are services and people out there who offer costume making services, and they say it's basically by contract. So you show them, oh, this is what I want. Can I have this done? And they'll quote you a price, and so you're basically outsourcing, or you're paying them for it. My friend Jesse and I, we actually got into that for a while when we didn't want our first job to be like burger flipping jobs. We're like, oh well, let's do like, you know, cosplay contracting kind of thing. And we tried, and it was successful in the way that we turned out high quality products. Like we made like the character Link from Zelda. He has a shield, and we made a shield. Like we learned how to actually manipulate wood and put on vinyl and all that, and it was really successful. The actual manufacturing process wasn't too long. I think it took about 2 weeks or so, and a lot of it was just with every project you'll have challenges where you say like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Like, how do you even make something like that? Like, I see it and I know what I want, but in terms of the materials or the techniques, I don't know what to do, right? And that's when we had to do online research, you know, like to get that curve in the wood. Like, what do you do? Oh, it turns out you have to wet the wood and then you bend it over something round and let it set, you know, and then you put wood glue on it, and you know, so all these things. So a lot of it's just research, discussion, and just making sure we actually do a good job at the end of the day. Actually, before meeting Richard, a lot of times I just went to just watch anime in those rooms. I didn't interact much with the people there. Like I would walk in the hallway and people are like, oh, can I take a picture? And that's great, right? Like that really makes the whole thing worthwhile. But it was only after talking to Richard, and he's like, well, you know, you can watch anime like anytime you want, but this convention and the people at the convention are only there once a year, right? So it was actually just through him that I sort of opened up and started interacting with people, or like paying attention to these events.
Well, I like them so much that I actually go on like websites and actually find cosplay shows from other events, and I download those and I watch them.
And my experience is mostly like the year when Richard, we actually got some people dropped out of that catwalk competition, and we got volunteered up there. So that experience was memorable and unique, to say the least.
They do have different contests. The three that I can remember are Anime Idol, which is basically American Idol. They dress up as a costume and they sing a Japanese song. The new one is the male modeling contest, where these guys get up and try to like out-sex the other guy. And I was actually in that show last year. Well, like they basically do poses and stuff. Like it's called a walk-off. So like the stage just has two guys, and one walks up, he does like a sexy pose, and then the other guy, he turns around, and the other guy has to walk up and do a better sexy pose, and then the crowd decides which is the winner. And they do this like 7 times per the round, and then whichever win, like they do really weird poses. Like if some guy's dressed up in a suit, which some anime characters are, he'll like take off his jacket and like turn around, do like the hair wave or something, and that's what they do. Even my friends that really like anime, I have to persuade them and drag them to these things, just because they think it's kind of odd.
And I think the most important aspect to have is just to be open-minded and just to like to have fun. And sometimes, you know, like try something and like maybe make a fool of yourself. But you know what? Like, what does that really mean at the end of the day? Like, as long as you have fun, right?
Like I see it as like a special event that I can go to and have fun.
It's an interesting sort of alternative, because I think for the 364 days of the year, we have our normal names and we have our normal clothes and we have our normal routines of work and school. But for that one particular day, you can be whoever you want, and you can not do whatever you want, but pretty much be free in a way to sort of explore aspects of yourself or aspects of a character that you normally don't tap into. I think that's a freedom that that some cosplayers such as myself find pretty enticing and intriguing.